Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I welcome everybody to the E4C webinar. Today we're very pleased to bring you the latest in E4C's 2012 webinar series. Today's webinar was developed in collaboration with the Pacific Institute, and our guest presenters are Meena Palaniappan and John Akudago. Apologies to both of you if I've mangled your names. My name is Yana Aranda, and I will be moderating today's webinar. When I'm not doing this, I work with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers as a program manager in the Engineering for Global Development Department. I'd like to take a moment to tell you a bit about today's webinar called Releasing Trapped Knowledge in the WASH Sector. For those of you who aren't familiar with that acronym, WASH stands for Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene. One of E4C's topical focus areas is water, and we are very glad to have the opportunity to address some of the important issues related to this field today, along with sanitation. To do so, we've invited today's presenters, Meena and John, both of the Pacific Institute, to talk about some of the work they've been doing. Thank you both for joining us today. Before we get rolling, I'd also like to take a moment to recognize the coordinators of the E4C webinar series, Holly Schneider-Brown and Alex Torres of IEEE, who work with me on developing and delivering the webinar series. Thank you, team. If anybody out there has questions about the series, please be encouraged to contact us via the email address visible on the side, webinars@engineeringforchange.org. Before we hand things over to our presenters today, we thought it would be a good idea to remind you about E4C and who we are. E4C is a global community of now over 11,700 technically minded individuals, such as engineers, technologists, NGO practitioners, and social scientists who work together to solve critical humanitarian challenges, whether in water, energy, health, agriculture, sanitation, or other areas faced around the world today. We invite you to join E4C by becoming a member. E4C membership provides cost-free access to a growing community and inventory of field-tested solutions and related information from all the members of our coalition, including professional societies like Engineers Without Borders USA, IEEE, ASCE, SWE, and ASHRAE, just to name a few, as well as academic supporters like MIT Z-Lab, international development agencies such as USAID and Practical Action, as well as access to a passionate, engaged community working to make people's lives better all over the world. Registration is easy and it's free. Check out our website, engineeringforchange.org, to learn more and sign up. The webinar you're participating in today is one installment of the Engineering for Change webinar series. This free, publicly available series of online seminars showcases the best practices and thinking of leaders in the field who bring leading-edge technology and solutions to bear on global humanitarian development challenges. Information on upcoming installments in the series, as well as archived videos of past presentations, can be found on the E4C webinars webpage, listed here, and also on our YouTube channel. The link is here as well. We welcome you to check it out. E4C's next webinar will actually be presented in two versions, both in English and in Spanish, on November 20th and 21st of 2012. The title of the webinar is Housing for Families by Families, or Construcción de Hogares de las Familias con las Familias. We will be joined by Dr. Francesco Piavetti, who is the Director General of Échale a tu Casa, who will speak on this topic. Registration will be available after this webinar on the E4C webinars page. So, a few housekeeping items before we get started. Let's see where everyone is from today. In the chat window on your right of your screen, please type in your location where you're joining us from today. Please note that any technical questions or administrative problems should go in the chat window as well. Feel free to send a private chat to Holly or Yana if you'd like to get a resolution to a technical inquiry. You can also use the chat window to type in any remarks you may have. During the webinar, in order to ask a question, please use the Q&A window located below the chat window to type in your questions to the presenter. If you are listening to the audio broadcast and encounter any troubles, try hitting stop and then start. If that does not work, you can use the call-in number for the teleconference. You may also want to try opening WebEx in a different browser. Following the webinar, To request a certificate of completion showing 1 professional development hour, or PDH, for this session, please provide your full name and date you completed this webinar, as well as the code that we will give you at the end of the session. Send this information to the email address eab-ceuadmin@IEEE.org. It is listed here. So with all of those housekeeping items in mind, and welcome you all from all over the country, we'd like to share with you a little information about today's presenters. Their first presenter is Meena Palaniappan, who is the director of the International Water and Communities Initiative at the Pacific Institute. Ms. Palaniappan is an engineer with more than 15 years' experience in community-based environmental planning and research. She has worked extensively on water, sanitation, and hygiene issues internationally, including in Mexico, East and West Africa, and India. In India, she has worked with numerous community-based organizations on water pollution, basic water needs, and water and climate change. Ms. Palaniappan has directed several international water and sanitation projects, including documenting successful water management. She's currently leading projects on expanding the ability of communities to choose water and sanitation technologies and approaches, and improving the resilience of communities to water insecurity as a result of climate change. Before coming to the Pacific Institute, Ms. Palaniappan worked with the Environmental Defense Fund on sustainable community development, pollution prevention, and environmental justice, and co-authored the EDF's Environmental Sustainability Kit. Meena received a Master of Science degree in Energy and Resources from the University of California, Berkeley. She also holds an undergraduate degree in Environmental Engineering from Northwestern University. We'd like to thank you, Meena, for joining us. Her colleague, Dr. John Akudago, is also joining us today. Dr. John Akudago is a Senior Research Associate in the Water Program of Pacific Institute. His research interests include quantitative and qualitative evaluation of aquifers and their effects on domestic and agricultural water uses, contaminant remediation, well sitting and drilling, water resources management, and conflict resolution, community sanitation, hygiene issues, and behavioral change, and the effects of climate change on water resources. Certainly a very full portfolio. Prior to joining the Pacific Institute, Dr. Akudago worked with the Community Water and Sanitation Agency in Ghana as a hydrogeologist, World Vision Ghana also as a hydrogeologist and field operations manager, and Samaritan Purse as the water sanitation hygiene manager, where he responded to water sanitation and hygiene needs of Haiti earthquake survivors, the cholera epidemic, and also the Japan earthquake survivors. Dr. Akudago received his bachelor's degree in geological engineering from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Kumasi, Ghana. He was later awarded a Japanese government scholarship to study in Okayama University, Japan, where he received his master's and PhD. We're very excited to have these fantastic presenters with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn over the presentation to them.
Great. Thank you, Yana. John and I are excited to introduce to you a system that we've been developing in partnership with organizations in West Africa over the last few years called the Community Choices System. And we're going to demonstrate the Community Choices for Water Treatment Technologies system online for you. So the goal of our effort has really been to address the tremendous loss of health and life as a result of the lack of water and sanitation internationally. The statistics are all too familiar, and but they're still horrific. There are nearly 1 billion people living without access to potable water and 2.5 billion people without access to adequate sanitation. As a result, there are 4,500 children who die every day from water-related illnesses. And one of the key issues in this has been our ability, the lack of sustaining and scaling up successful efforts in the field. The goal of our effort, the way that we do our work to improve water, sanitation, hygiene challenges internationally is by releasing trapped knowledge in the water sector so that it flows to people that need this information in order to make better decisions about improving their water and sanitation conditions. So we have these billions of people on one side without access to water and sanitation, and yet there are hundreds of effective, low-cost technologies to meet these needs. How do we bridge this gap so that we can give people the information they need to build technologies to treat their waste or to treat their water using locally available materials. And so the goal of our effort has really been to bridge this knowledge gap, to say we need to take this information that exists in books and pamphlets and has been created and produced by international institutions and get it to the people in West Africa and East Africa, in remote rural places who need this information to make better decisions. And to start off our efforts, 3 years ago, we did a study with the Woodrow Wilson Center looking at decision-making support systems and tools to support better decisions in the water and sanitation sectors. And at that time, we researched 120 existing support resources in the sector. And then we further studied and evaluated 18 of these that were most similar to a decision-making support tool, and found that none adequately served WASH practitioners. Since we've created that tool, there have been other things that have come out, like the ELWAG compendium and work by ACPO. But what remains is this lack of an effective user interface, so that someone can be guided through the different technologies in the space to be presented with a few that best meet their needs. And there's also a lack of consideration of social implications, information on cost and financing, and really all the information that would be needed to scale or replicate these technologies in different places. So I am going to hand it to John right now, who is going to talk to you about our work in the field.
Good morning, and thank you, Meena, for handing it over to me. Just as Meena mentioned, there's the need to have a decision-making tool. But we can't have this if we do not have people to support or people to help us develop it. So we had some partners in West Africa, New Energy, ProNet, Rural Aid, Water and Sanitation for Africa, and World Vision. They were our field partners trying to help us coordinate all learning and testing activities on the field. We got funding from Conrad Hilton Foundation after Meena, had already done some initial landscaping. So what was the main technology we're looking for? Is community choices. And as Meena mentioned, on the field there is actually a need to balance what we give people versus what they want. And this has been the main issue with sustainability. If people really form part of the decision to have a project implemented, then definitely they are going to take good care of it. And so we tried developing this community choices tool, which is a decision support tool, to help users identify what appropriate water treatment solutions they needed, what fits their environment, and how much they could afford for that. And how do we do this? We do this by asking questions, letting them know the solutions that will fit their environment, culture, finances, and so on. So I will take you through what the tool is. If you look at community choices system, as I would term it, I term it system because we have many models coming under the system. But for just one model, which is the community choices for water, I'm going to elaborate more on that. But we have the system. And the essence of the community choices system, we have only 5 key messages to say here. One, we want to release trapped knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge hanging around in papers, hanging around in journals, published journals and so on, but it has not been able to be utilized, or it has not reached those who actually need it. If you have, let's say, a journal publishing on how to solve a arsenic issue, and that is locked up in maybe a journal of hydrology, someone in Port-au-Prince is likely not to hear of that. But our system is aimed at releasing that trapped knowledge, connecting someone in Port-au-Prince to the knowledge that is already existing in that journal of hydrology. And when you do that, the community takes interest in participating in whatever project you are bringing to them, because they are already aware of the various technologies or knowledge available, and they can say, this would be the best option for me. And so that would increase their participation in whatever project you are going to take to them. And once there's an increase in participation from beginning, community understands what makes the project sustainable. From beginning to end, they know what goes into it, what finances are required, they know how to sustain it, they know when and where to contact for information if something is wrong with that system. And once that is done, they get to know that, they are able to contact technical group A or funding group B for assistance for that implementation. And that also improves their confidence, because somewhere in the world, that system or that technology has already been experimented. And once that happens continuously, they can always get back to the system to update themselves. Capacity building would be improved because they would always have information on how to build the system, how to construct it, where the system works, and how to maintain it. Now, to be able to design or construct a useful system for someone in Port-au-Prince or someone in West Africa, you cannot just sit in the U.S. and do it, because we are not the people to use it. The people who would be using that system are somewhere in the village. So we decided to do some learning sessions with our partners in West Africa that I've already mentioned. And we conducted 3 learning sessions in Ghana, in 3 communities, and 3 communities in Burkina Faso. Ghana and Burkina Faso, I'm not sure if everyone is familiar, but Ghana is located in the west coast of Africa, and Burkina is directly north of Ghana. And if you don't know where they are, just look directly below London to where the sea is in Africa, and you would be sure you meet Ghana. We also conducted 3 learning sessions with WASH practitioners in Ghana and Burkina Faso, and also presented the concept of the community choices system in 3 conferences in Uganda, Ghana, and in the U.S. And we had a lot of information from this telling us that there was really a need for a decision support tool. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the system, but Meena will be demonstrating after this. We have the system already developed now, and what happens is, if you want to go into that system, you go on www.communitychoicestool.org, and when you log onto the system, you have various icons that you could look at, which Meena will be taking you through. And I want to just say that since Meena will be demonstrating, the demonstration would explain much better. Meena, please take over.
Thank you, Sean. So any of you can access the Community Choices system right now. The first module is on drinking water treatment. This is developed based on the learning sessions that John described. And so this is what you would get to. Can everyone see my screen now? Yep? Okay. So this is what you would come to on the front page of Community Choices. And as John said, communitychoicestool.org. We welcome all of you to share this link with your colleagues and others that you know are working in the field. And as John talked to you a little bit about the pilot testing, one thing that John and I want to be clear about is that this is really a way for the implementers in the field, local governments and non-governmental organizations who are working with communities to facilitate a process in communities so that these residents can ensure that their interests and needs are considered in the selection of the technologies they'll be using. So there are several ways that you can go through to find a solution. You can take a survey and save the results and get a user ID, take the survey as a guest, or enter the library. So I'm going to show you a little bit of what the survey looks like. So here is sort of the first question in the survey: what is the primary source of your water for domestic uses? And what John has found in his fieldwork is that people are walking by their abandoned boreholes because they're dry or they're broken and going back to their former existing polluted surface water sources. How far is your primary source of water? In many cases, it's quite far. And so you go through a series of questions like this. There are 18 questions in this particular survey. And then at the end of it, you get to a set of solutions that are recommended and a percent fit. And to understand sort of how that percent fit was arrived at, there's a solutions tree which you can access. So you answer this for this question, and as a result, these are the kinds of treatment that that could positively impact that answer, or negatively impact or have no impact on. And so this is sort of the matrix, the decision making matrix behind the questions that lead to the solutions that are recommended. And at the end, you get to the library, which says, here are the solutions that were best for you. And you click on one that the folks in the community are interested in, and you get everything you would need to build, maintain, and continue to operate the system, including associated hygiene practices that need to be followed in the home, and also suggestions on recommended funding and financing in the community, and other organizations that have built or are doing similar work in that region. So that is a demo of the system. We're happy to answer more questions about it. Would look forward to your feedback on it. If you go to communitychoicestool.org, you can offer your feedback on it. And I'm going to hand it back to, hand it back to John to talk about the pilot testing in West Africa.
Well, there's a link problem.
John, do you have the ball now? Yeah?
All right. Okay.
I hope everyone is able to see the screenshots. Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you, Meena, for handing over that to me. Yeah, and so looking at scaling, we are looking and focusing. I'll be talking about the pilot testing, but before then, I just want to talk about scaling partners and distribution needs. We are looking to see that we develop a tool that would be kept for these people who really need it, and they can use it at any time they want. So we are looking at how to develop, manage, and host the content. And looking at that, we are looking at building strategic partners that can take care of this system to be able to make it available for the communities that want to use, or the wash practitioners that want to use it. And there's still a need to do more work on the system to really make it more robust for the users. But we have not yet reached there. We are still exploring partners to see which partners would be suitable for us to get to where we want to finally get to. And partners like Akudago, Blue Planet, and Water and Sanitation for Africa are possible candidates that we are still exploring. Now I'll take you to pilot testing. Meena has just demonstrated the tool to you or to all of us, but we have to take this tool to the communities to really find out whether what we have come out with after the learning sessions is what they really needed. And so we took it there and piloted it in 3 communities in Ghana. The key findings that we had was really impressive, and I would just comment on that. Some of the communities, you get there and you see the type of water people are drinking, and you ask them, do you really know that your water is polluted? The answer is always obviously yes. But why are you not treating? And then they tell you, well, we don't know many technologies. We know that boiling is the best, but in Burkina Faso, for example, it's much cheaper to buy a metal door than a wooden door. So how do I get wood to cook and boil my water? And so this has always been the story around the community. So you realize that they lack information about the various treatment options that they can use without necessarily destroying the environment. The other thing was that about 80% of the households were really satisfied with the tool. They really impressed me with the way they explained that no one has come to tell us this way or ask us of our opinion or ask us how much we can pay for a system before giving us. So when they leave, sometimes it's difficult for us to maintain the system, and we end up reverting to our former or traditional sources of water. Residents also learned a lot about new technologies to treat their water from the tool, and they were very, very much happy with the fact that some new technologies which were existing somewhere had been brought to them as new technologies because they didn't know them. The other thing was that we tried as much as possible to implement some of the technologies with the community members that we piloted the tools with. And we selected a few of them and helped them to build some of these technologies. What were the improvements needed from the pilot testing? Communities really thought that the tool needs to have more visual to make, because literacy rate in some of those developing countries are very low. And I think in Ghana and Burkina Faso, there are no exceptions. And they think that if we have more visual, they will be able to understand what the tool actually is trying to talk of, if there's no any literate person or NGO person to guide them through. The other challenge that we needed to address there was the supply chain issue. There were some areas where we wanted to get whatever materials was required to construct the treatment option, but you had to either travel to another country to get it, or you might even wait for 2 or 3 days for the supplies to be delivered to you. And even if they will arrive safely, you are not sure because the routes are not that good for safe transport. And the other challenge was that some of the community members were not in a position to even afford the price of those treatment options, though they are considered low cost. And so they needed always financial support to be able to build the initial system. These features that you are seeing is, I would call it, one slide in all. And it's one slide in all because it is just showing you the processes that we went through in all the pilot testing. And I have a video that is being located at the YouTube link that is on top of the slide now. If you go there, you would play and get some of the messages from the communities. First, we had to meet the community members and ask them, are you aware of the way your water is, whether it's safe or not? And they gave us responses. And then we made selection of a few households that we could work with based on the community decision, the criteria that they could use to select those households were given to them. They had the right to do that. We didn't select the households. Then the community members selected the households, and then we went on with the tool to administer to them. And that is the second slide. You can see someone sitting with a computer. And then we brought these community members together and brought some portable water quality testing kits called the microbiological portable lab test kits. We gave to each and every member that we selected in the community to test the water and give them the impression whether the water is safe for them to drink or not. And these test kits only gave us bacterial contamination results. And after they got the results, in fact, some communities, before you even go, the result takes 24 hours the test takes 24 hours to get the result. And before you get there, the next morning, there are a lot of community members already running to tell you, we didn't know our water is that polluted and we are drinking. Please, what can you do to save this situation in the community? And so you would ask them for the materials to construct some of the treatment technologies. Those materials that were readily available within the community members willingly went and got all of them for us. But some of them required money and it was difficult for them. And you can see that the slide in the lower middle is showing a biosand filter where people are taking water, and you can see comparison of two water containers, one which is clean and one which is dirty. And the last slide shows people being so happy and wanting to take pictures together with me. Now, what were the lessons that we learned from the pilot testing? The community choices system really serves the key need that the NGOs and communities need in decision making. For example, if you look at NGOs, there are a lot of NGOs that are working in the communities. They are time bound. They will not have all the time to prepare the community to that level that the community will understand the different technologies available before they give them the technology they want to give. So they just go and impose the technology to them. So many NGOs found, all the NGOs that I talked to, found that this tool is a useful tool in preparing the communities to accept whatever project you want to implement with them. The other lesson that we learned was the supply chain issue. And that is really a big issue affecting those who really need household water treatment. Some of the communities cannot even find the materials to buy. And sometimes they have to depend on middlemen who would come and inflate the prices to them, and which is just beyond the affordable price that they could afford from the community level. And then poor households also needed some financial support to be able to implement their solutions. And this requires that we have to search for either funding or have to look for partners that can really help them to implement some of these solutions. There was also a call that since the water treatment is really useful to them, why don't you extend this tool to sanitation? Why don't you extend this tool to water access or multiple uses water services? And so many communities and many NGOs are calling for the inclusion of sanitation, water access, and multiple uses water services models in the community choices system. And next step, we are in the process of exploring for funding to extend the tool to cover what the communities and the NGOs are looking for, the sanitation, water access, and MOOS model. We are also working with suppliers to bridge supply chain gap, and this requires a lot of funding, and so we are still in the proposal stage trying to see if we can get funding to bridge this gap in the rural areas. We are also exploring for partnership to support communities financially to implement solutions. Just as I mentioned, some of the solutions were just as low as $20 or $30. solution. But this was not affordable at the household level. And so some households will definitely have to be supported if we really want to help them to come out of this their serious water need. And we need to translate this tool into French. Since we are dealing with West Africa, the tool is at the moment in English, and West Africa is both English and French. And so we are looking beyond just the English tool, which is a bit difficult for the French people to use without translators. So we want to translate the tool outright into French so that will ease the usage. And we're also looking at the dissemination of the tool to other countries. And again, this will require some sort of funding. And we are exploring and looking for possibilities to get this to other countries. This is what I have from the field. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John. Meena, did you want to add anything else to that, or can we move to Q&A?
Yeah, I think we should move to Q&A. And on the next slide, if we can move to that on the screen, is John's contact information. And I think that John's expressed sort of the need for scaling up and expanding the system, and the interest in looking for partnerships and funding possibilities. So if folks can contact him and also express their questions in the Q&A, that would be great.
Fantastic. So at this point, we'd like to open up the floor to all of our participants to share questions with our presenters. You can enter your questions into the Q&A window located below the chat window, and see what feedback John and Meena can provide. While we're waiting for the questions to come in, I do have one question, and that's related to the dissemination of the tool. And in terms of access, do you find that being primarily hosted via the internet is something that you need to investigate further, or have other dissemination models been investigated, such as mobile?
So one thing that we probably forgot to mention is that when John was doing the pilot testing in the field, the exact way that proceeded was that he trained the WASH practitioners, the NGOs, local government staff on how to use the tool, and they downloaded the system. So you can download the entire decision support system onto your computer or tablet, and that's how they took it to the field. So it's not just online, but also downloadable, but there are other methods that John has been exploring too, including written versions and more graphical interfaces, which you can mention.
Very interesting. Thank you. We do have one more question that came in. The question here is, what are the main reasons for unsustainable wash facilities? Many attempts are being made to create sustainable wash facilities. What is successful? I suppose we are looking here for some lessons learned and some notes on that.
So our research leading up to the development of this really demonstrated that one of the factors in the lack of success of technologies was the failure to involve and include communities in decision making. And this system is really about transforming the process of development in a way, so that these NGOs or these community support organizations go into a community and say, what are your needs and what are your resources in all of these different capacities, environmental and financial and social. And based on that, what are the kinds of, and here's a set of technologies, not here's a silver bullet that fits what we think are your needs, but here are some options. And in some cases, people will choose an option that doesn't seem ideal to an outsider, but is the best fit for them. And so what we're trying to address is one of the factors of sustainability, which is community-led decision-making. Many of us, I'm sure, visited the development projects where toilets are being used as grain storage bins. because they weren't built to sort of meet the needs of the people that are there. And John might also want to respond.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that issues of unsustainable wash facilities could also result from just not only the initial participation of the communities, but it could also result from the policies that are on the ground, and then the approach that NGOs use to enter into the community. If you get to the community without necessarily taking into consideration the cultural practices in that community, you may end up having facility constructed and it will not be maintained. For example, there are some communities where, let's say a toilet, people say, I cannot, excuse me to use this word because I'm in the wash field, I cannot shit on shit. So we call it SOS. If you design a toilet for a household where another person is going to use that toilet with the landlord's shit is not supposed to be on another person's shit, then definitely one of the groups has to do open defecation, because the toilet is only designed for, one toilet is designed and no shit on shit. The other issue is the policies that we have. Sometimes we are not able to promote the technologies that are available on the field. People just try to impose technologies. Maybe the government recommends that just use this hand pump, for example. Just use only Indian Mat2 or use Afride's pump. Now, everyone who is coming there to work as an NGO would be restricting himself or herself to only Afride's pump. But there are cheaper pumps that could be put there for the communities themselves to maintain. But unfortunately, because the national policy is just, let's put this one on every well that we drill, the people are forced to be on that. So the communities don't have a choice in the technology that they are given. And then thirdly, we are not able to incorporate some sort of funding opportunities or income generation opportunities to people that will provide those facilities. And so we have to look beyond just providing facility for a single use to multiple use. For example, if you just go there and construct a well for people to use for drinking without catering for their household needs, or for people to be able to breathe pito, for example, in Ghana, which is something people patronize, definitely you would see that that facility will not be sustainable, because most of the people who would use the water would not be able to use the water for any income generation that they will be able to maintain the facility when it is broken down.
That is very insightful, John. Thank you for sharing that. I think those are critical examples that really drive forward some of the challenges. We have some more questions that have come in. Another question is regarding the community choices tool is centered around kind of a broader adoption, namely, how easily do you think this tool could be used in other parts of the world outside of Africa?
The goal is really what we had originally hoped to do, was to be able to transition effective technologies and approaches that work in the highlands of Nepal to the highlands of Peru. And it's really envisioned as a global tool, but understanding there's really a lot of regional specificity in terms of materials that are readily available and the organizations that are available to be contacted. And so the original plan for developing the tool was to develop in 3 global regions around the world. So it sort of bubbles up from the ground and then gets connected internationally. We have been able to get funding to do this in West Africa because of the Hilton Foundation's strong commitment to that region of the world. But the goal is to really make this applicable all over. And I think that even though this is a West Africa specific, so some of the resources, the substantive information in the system, aside from the contact, is applicable everywhere. right now. And we had a previous prototype on sanitation, which was similar in terms of being applicable everywhere, aside from the resource page.
Fantastic. Related to that question, apologies, John, did you want to add to that?
Yes, I wanted to say that there are many NGOs that have also just learned of the tool. For example, UNICEF is one organization that is really promoting household water treatment, because they know whatever be the case, we are not going to have everyone having a potable water supply. And so household water treatment is being promoted by UNICEF. And they just learned about the tool, and they are very much interested. And we are exploring further to see how best we could bring efforts together to extend this tool to other places.
Fantastic, and I think that's related to the next question, which I'm going to kind of combine. It was a double question regarding expansion. So as you expand and scale up the tool, would you consider sharing the technology or tool across other sectors, for example, waste? And also, if you've considered, in addition to, raising awareness of the tool, also seeking out partnerships with advocacy organizations like Charity Water, for example, water.org, to expand your reach. So double whammy there.
Yeah, no, those are good suggestions. A lot of, obviously, the organizations in West Africa that work in West Africa know about the system, and water.org and Charity Water are not two of the organizations that have a strong presence there. So those are good organizations to follow up with. And on the issue of, I'm sorry, the first question was?
Considering sharing the technology or tool across, basically taking the tool
right.
and applying it to other sectors such as waste management.
Yes. Absolutely, and I think that there's a huge potential and need for that. And what I didn't sort of go into detail on is after we did the survey of the 120 support resources in the sector, we looked at what kinds of decision-making support tools exist and are available off the shelf, where we can fill in the back-end matrix and be able to input sort of some of the engineering knowledge as well as the local knowledge in order to help people navigate through solutions. And there's really nothing that met our needs. And if there was, it was, $20,000 to get an off-the-shelf piece that wasn't really ideal. And so we created something that's easily modifiable by non-technical people. The back end, the decision support tree part of it is all in Django, and so it's very easily modifiable by an expert like John, who's working in the field, who can integrate the local knowledge and the expert knowledge into it. So it's absolutely transferable to other, not only in the wash sector, so sanitation and water sources, and John's very interested in flooding issues, using the system for promoting flood technologies, flood resilience technologies, but absolutely waste and other public services, I think, are great solutions to use the tool to be able to navigate through.
Yeah, and just to add to that, this issue has come up during the learning sessions. People have called for drainage and waste disposal models as part of the tool. And we are really exploring. We hope that if we are able to get enough funding, these would be areas we would definitely extend the tool to.
Fantastic. So we are coming close to the end of our webinar. I do realize we started a little bit late, so we've taken our Q&A over a little bit. There was another question that came in, but I believe we've already addressed it regarding the possibility of using the tool on mobile phones, and I believe that Meena has noted that there's multiple ways that you can actually download this information and use it whether on a tablet or other methods. But certainly if you all want to expand on that, I invite you, because this is a very hot topic in terms of development.
On the mobile phone issue, we are exploring it. The kind of framework that we've chosen for the system obviously could transfer well to a smartphone, but that's not typically the kind of technology that's on the ground and easily available in communities. We're not talking about smartphones. And so in terms of a phone that doesn't have smartphone capabilities, we've looked into other methods like using a voice system where people can sort of use their keypad to respond to certain questions. Then the kind of sticky part we got to is how do we then send them the output pages in terms of how to build the technology. So I would say that's still under exploration, and I think that as the technology on the ground changes, we'll have more possibilities.
Thank you, Meena, and we can certainly appreciate those challenges. And considering that we have so many keen folks on the line today and those with technical capabilities, perhaps this is a challenge that we can all work on together in terms of future advancement of this field. So with that, I believe we have no further questions, and I'd like to thank our presenters for taking the time to share this amazing information with us. And I'd like to thank you all for attending this webinar. Please note that we will have a recording of this webinar available in about a week or two on the webinars page as well as on our YouTube channel, and you'll all be able to grab that link and share it widely. For those of you who are interested in receiving a professional development hour for this webinar, the code is listed here along with the email address where you should send the request for that PDH. And if you have more questions or suggestions on a particular topic that you think would be of interest to the E4C community, please do send us an email at the address listed here. Thank you all again. We look forward to seeing you on our next webinar, which will be November 20th and 21st for those of you who are interested in listening to it in Spanish. And thank you again for your support. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.